The alarm screamed through the cockpit at precisely 1400 hours. Not a drill, not a simulation. Real consequences hanging in digital space. Maverick Hayes had 3 seconds to make a decision that would haunt him for the rest of his career, or save it. He froze. The simulator went dark. Mission failed. In the observation booth above, a man older than the base itself watched without expression. Silas Crawford didn't need to see the numbers. He'd watched 1,000 pilots fail the same test, but only in the last decade had he bothered to care. Welcome to the Story Chronicles, where legends are made in the space between heartbeats. Subscribe now, because what happens next will rewrite everything you thought you knew about courage. Redstone Air Base sprawled across the desert like a steel monument to American air superiority. Hangars gleamed under merciless sun. F-16s sat in perfect rows, their weapon systems capable of leveling cities. But in the corner of the officers' mess hall, past the glossy recruitment posters and the Wall of Valor, sat a man who remembered when war was fought in places that didn't exist on any map. Silas Crawford looked like someone's grandfather. Gray stubble, weathered hands, a jacket too heavy for the climate. He came to the base 3 times a week, always alone, always to the same corner table. The young officers called him the Relic, not out of disrespect, but because he seemed carved from a different era. What they didn't know was that the small silver badge on his collar had been earned in blood that was never officially spilled. Maverick Hayes burst into the mess hall with the kind of energy that comes from youth and unearned confidence. 24 years old, top of his class at flight school, already talking about making squadron leader before 30. He'd aced every test except the one that mattered, the one where hesitation meant death. His wingman Finn Barrett followed behind, quieter, more observant. Finn had learned early that the loudest pilot was rarely the best pilot. Behind them both, Ronan Bishop carried a tablet full of diagnostic data, his engineer's mind already analyzing what went wrong in the simulator. Maverick grabbed a coffee and scanned the room. His eyes landed on Silas. On the badge, most people wouldn't recognize it, a small eagle perched on crosshairs surrounded by 13 stars. No words, no explanation, just a piece of metal that hadn't been officially issued since 1991. "Check out Grandpa over there," Maverick said, loud enough to carry. Probably reminiscing about the good old days when planes had propellers. Finn didn't laugh. His grandfather had been Air Force, had taught him to recognize things other people missed. That badge wasn't standard issue. That badge was something else entirely. Ronan looked up from his tablet, squinted at Silas, then went back to his numbers. But his fingers had stopped moving. Silas took a sip of coffee. Black, no sugar. The same way he'd drunk it in places where sugar was a luxury and coffee was a rumor. He didn't acknowledge the comment. Didn't need to. Maverick's ego couldn't leave it alone. He walked over, confidence rolling off him like heat shimmer. "Hey there, sir. That's an interesting badge. Commemorative?" Silas set down his cup with the same precision he applied to everything. Looked up at Maverick with eyes that had seen things the young pilot couldn't imagine. "No," Silas said. His voice carried the weight of avalanches. "Operational," Maverick blinked. "Operational? What unit? One that doesn't exist anymore." Finn had drifted closer now, his instincts screaming that this conversation was more important than Maverick realized. Ronan stayed back, but his tablet screen had gone dark. He was listening. "All units exist in the records," Maverick said, his smile faltering. "Archives, heritage sites, museums." "Not this one," Silas replied. He touched the badge with one finger. This one was erased. The mess hall had gone quieter. Other officers were paying attention now, though they pretended not to. Preston Briggs, the base security chief, stood up from his table across the room. He knew. He was one of the only ones who did. Maverick's training kicked in. Squadron designations, operational histories, special warfare units. His mind raced through every classified briefing he'd ever received. Then it hit him. 13 stars, crosshairs, eagle. "Ghost protocol," Finn whispered. The words fell like stones into still water. Maverick's face went pale. Ronan's tablet slipped from his fingers, clattered against the table. Preston Briggs crossed the room in 4 strides, but he didn't interfere, just stood nearby, arms crossed, watching. Ghost protocol wasn't taught in flight school. It wasn't in the official histories. It existed in whispers, in redacted documents, in the spaces between what was admitted and what was true. Deep penetration operations, hostile territory, no support, no extraction guarantee. Operatives who went in knowing they might never come out. Casualty rate estimated at 70%, but estimated was the key word, because the real numbers were still classified. "You were Ghost Protocol," Finn said. Not a question, a realization. Silas nodded once, the smallest movement, an acknowledgement that carried the weight of decades. "Southeast Asia operations?" Maverick asked, his earlier arrogance completely gone. "After," Silas said. "When the war everyone knew about ended, the war nobody knew about continued. Different terrain, same ghosts." Ronan found his voice. "How many missions?" 47, Silas said. He didn't elaborate, didn't need to. Math did the rest. 47 missions with a 70% casualty rate meant he should have died 32 times over. Join the Story Chronicles, where survival isn't luck. It's something darker, something earned. Hit subscribe, because this story doesn't end here. Finn pulled out a chair and sat down without asking permission. Maverick followed, his swagger replaced by something approaching humility. Ronan stayed standing, but he'd moved closer. "Sir," Finn said carefully, "if you don't mind me asking, what was the mission structure?" Silas studied the young pilot, saw genuine curiosity instead of voyeurism, saw respect instead of hero worship. 4-man teams, Silas said, insertion by night. Objectives varied: reconnaissance, asset recovery, target elimination, extraction if we were lucky, self-exfiltration if we weren't. 4-man teams for that kind of operation? Ronan said. His engineer's mind was calculating distances, support requirements, communication windows. That's insane. It was necessary, Silas corrected. Larger teams created larger signatures. Larger signatures meant detection. Detection meant failure. Preston Briggs finally spoke. "Tell them about Nakamura." Silas's jaw tightened. For a moment, something raw and ancient flickered across his face. Then it was gone, buried under 40 years of practice. "Nakamura was our communications specialist," Silas said. "Best I ever worked with. Could bounce a signal off 6 satellites and make it look like static. Could tap enemy frequencies without leaving a trace." He paused. The mess hall had gone completely silent now. Everyone was listening, though most pretended they weren't. "We were 12 clicks inside the border. Officially, we weren't there. The country we were in didn't exist on our mission brief. The target was a weapons cache supplying insurgents in 3 neighboring regions. Intelligence said it was lightly guarded. Intelligence was wrong." Maverick leaned forward. Finn's hands were flat on the table, completely still. Ronan had given up pretending to look at his tablet. "We hit the compound at 0300, perfect entry, no alarms. We'd rigged the cache for demolition when the ambush came from 3 sides, not local insurgents, professional military. Someone had been waiting for us." The words came measured, precise, like coordinates. "Rodriguez took shrapnel in the first 30 seconds, kept fighting, kept moving, got us to secondary rally point before he collapsed. Nakamura stayed behind to call in air support, alone, surrounded, told us to run." Silas picked up his coffee. His hand was steady, had always been steady. That was the problem. Air support came. Nakamura didn't. Finn's eyes were wet. Maverick stared at the table. Ronan looked like he'd been punched. "Washington and I carried Rodriguez 6 clicks through hostile territory. Took us 14 hours. Rodriguez died 2 clicks from extraction. Held on just long enough to see the helicopter. Nakamura's body was never recovered." The silence stretched. Outside, a jet engine roared to life, but inside the mess hall, no one breathed. "Sir," Maverick said quietly, his voice completely different now. "How do you carry that?" Silas looked at him, really looked at him, saw a young pilot who'd frozen in a simulator and thought it was the end of the world. "You don't carry it," Silas said. "It carries you. Every flight, every mission, every time you strap into that cockpit, you're carrying everyone who didn't come home. That's the weight. That's the job. He reached into his jacket and pulled out something small. A badge. Identical to the one on his collar, but this one showed its age. Scratched, dented, worn from being gripped too hard, too often. This was Nakamura's, Silas said. He set it on the table between them. He gave it to me 3 hours before the mission, said if anything happened, pass it on to someone who understood what it meant to fly for something bigger than yourself. Finn stared at the badge. Maverick couldn't look away. Ronan's hands trembled. I've been carrying this for 37 years, Silas continued, waiting for the right pilot. Someone who failed and learned from it. Someone who froze and found out why. His eyes locked on Maverick. You failed today. In the simulator. Hesitated when you should have acted. That's not weakness. That's learning. The question is what you do next. Maverick reached for the badge, then stopped. Sir, I can't take this. I haven't earned it. You earned it the moment you admitted failure, Silas said. Nakamura taught me that courage isn't about never being afraid. It's about being terrified and flying anyway, for your crew, for your mission, for the brothers who depend on you. He pushed the badge across the table. Take it. Honor it. Pass it on when you find someone who needs to learn what you learned today. Maverick picked up the badge with shaking hands, felt its weight, not the metal, everything it represented. This is the Story Chronicles. This is where boys become men and men become legends. Subscribe now. Stay with us. The story gets deeper. Finn spoke carefully. Sir, what was the worst mission? Silas was quiet for a long time. When he answered, his voice carried echoes of things that should have stayed buried. The worst mission was the one after Nakamura. When we went back in to finish what he started. When we succeeded and no one could ever know. When we came home and there was no parade, no recognition, just a classified report and a badge that officially doesn't exist. He stood slowly, shouldering his jacket. The worst part isn't the missions you lose, it's the missions you win, and nobody remembers. It's carrying ghosts that can't be honored because they were never there. It's knowing that freedom isn't free. It's paid for by men who die in countries that don't exist, for operations that never happened, wearing badges that aren't real. Preston Briggs stepped forward. Silas served 47 Ghost Protocol missions, survived when survival was statistical impossibility, lost 12 teammates over 8 years, came home to a country that couldn't acknowledge what he'd done. Maverick stood up, the badge clutched tight. Sir, will you come back, maybe talk to our squadron, help us understand? Silas looked at the 3 young men, saw himself 40 years ago, saw Nakamura, saw Rodriguez, saw all the ones who didn't make it home. I come here 3 times a week, he said. You want to learn? Show up, ask questions, listen to the answers. But understand this, I can't teach you how to survive. I can only teach you what survival costs. He started toward the door, then paused. And one more thing. When you're up there in that cockpit, when the alarms are screaming and your training fails and your instincts freeze, remember something. You're not flying alone. Every pilot who came before you, every operator who died so you could be here, they're in that cockpit with you. Nakamura's in that cockpit. Rodriguez is in that cockpit. Washington is in that cockpit. You don't fly for yourself. You fly for them. The door opened. Desert sunlight streamed in, turning Silas into a silhouette. Sir, Finn called out. Thank you. Silas didn't turn around. Don't thank me. Honor them. Fly like they're watching, because they are. And then he was gone, leaving 3 young men staring at a badge that officially didn't exist, earned in a war that never happened by men who were never there. Maverick looked at his wingmen. We need to be better. We will be, Finn said. Ronan finally spoke. We have to be. They sat in silence for a long time. Around them, the mess hall slowly came back to life. Conversations resumed, pilots laughed, the base continued its daily rhythm. But something fundamental had changed. That evening, Maverick did something he'd never done before. He went to the base archives, requested every declassified file on special operations, read until his eyes burned. What he found made his blood run cold. Ghost Protocol operations existed from 1984 to 1991. Officially disbanded after the Cold War. Unofficially continued until 1998. 73 confirmed operatives, 49 confirmed casualties, 24 survivors, most with injuries that ended their careers. And in the margin of one document, a single name with a single note, Crawford, S. 47 missions, 0 failures, 3 letters of commendation that remain classified, recommended for Medal of Honor 3 times, denied 3 times due to operational security. The next morning, Maverick arrived at the simulator at 0500, early, before anyone else. He pinned Nakamura's badge to his flight suit right over his heart. When the alarm screamed this time, he didn't freeze. He acted. Moved with precision that came from understanding what failure really meant, from knowing that hesitation didn't just fail missions, it failed the men who depended on you. The simulator ended. Mission success. Preston Briggs watched from the observation booth, nodded once. In the corner of the mess hall that afternoon, Silas Crawford sat with his coffee. Black, no sugar. Maverick approached, no swagger now, just quiet respect. "Sir, I'd like to hear more about the missions, about your team, about what it really means to fly for something bigger than yourself." Silas looked up, saw the badge on Maverick's chest, saw something different in the young pilot's eyes, something that looked like understanding. "Sit down," Silas said. "Let me tell you about a communications specialist named Nakamura who could make miracles happen with nothing but a radio and courage most men can't imagine." And so, the stories began. Not all at once, not in grand lectures, but in quiet conversations over coffee, in the spaces between missions, in the moments when young pilots learned that their wings were earned by men who never wore them. The base gossip network spread the word quickly. Lane 7 in the simulator, the one Maverick now used exclusively, became known as Nakamura's Lane. Young pilots started showing up early, started asking questions, started understanding that flight school taught you to fly, but veterans taught you why. Silas never asked for recognition, never wanted monuments. He just showed up 3 times a week, drank his coffee, and waited for young pilots who needed to learn what their uniforms really meant. And sometimes, when the base was quiet and the desert wind carried memories, you could see him there. Still standing guard, still protecting, still serving in the only way he knew how, by making sure the next generation understood what their freedom cost. The badge Maverick carried became more than metal. It became a reminder that every mission was flown on the shoulders of men who never came home, that every safe landing was a gift paid for in blood that was never counted, that every pilot wore wings earned by ghosts who would never be honored. In the end, that's what real heroes do. They don't seek glory. They don't demand parades. They just show up, do what needs to be done, and make sure the next generation doesn't forget. Because some lessons can't be taught in simulators. Some truths can only be passed down by men who lived them. And some badges carry weight that no scale can measure. Finn started recording the conversations. With permission. Created an archive that would never be official, but would always be true. Ronan designed a memorial wall in the pilot ready room. 13 stars arranged in a circle. No names, no explanations. Just a reminder that some warriors flew in darkness so others could fly in light. And Maverick? He flew every mission like Nakamura was watching. Because he was. They all were. The ones who didn't come home, the ones whose names appeared in no records, the ones who wore badges that officially didn't exist. Silas Crawford continued coming to Redstone Air Base 3 times a week. Same corner table, same coffee, same worn jacket. But he wasn't alone anymore. Young pilots sat with him now, asked questions, listened to answers, learned what it meant to fly for something bigger than yourself. And sometimes, late at night when the base was silent, you could hear it. The whisper that spread through the ready rooms like wind through the desert. be quiet. There's a legend at Table 7, and legends don't need monuments. They just need someone to remember they were there when it mattered most. Stay with the Story Chronicles. Subscribe, share, honor the stories that shape the sky. Because these wings were earned in blood, and that debt never expires.